Hello, this is Vaibhav Purandare here, and my new video is about Muhammad Ali Jinnah's mystery woman. Who is this mystery woman in the life of Jinnah? We are not talking about Rati Jinnah, Jinnah's wife, and we are not talking about Fatima Jinnah, Jinnah's sister. We are talking about a certain Miss Gilead. This woman's full name is Miss Elizabeth Gilead, and her exact address is 6 Westminster Gardens, London. Now, why are we talking about her? Let's find that out. For that, we'll have to go back to the year 1946. Now, 1946 is an especially tense year in the modern history of India. There is plenty of communal violence that has broken out across the country. There are massacres happening in various parts of India. And there is feverish discussion going on the issue of the partition of India and the creation of a separate state of Pakistan. Muhammad Ali Jinnah is strongly batting for the creation of Pakistan as leader of the Muslim League, and the Indian National Congress, led by Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, Azad and others, is strongly opposed to India's partition. Now, while these discussions are on, one of the British politicians who fervently supports the cause of creation of Pakistan is Winston Churchill. Now, Churchill right through the 1940s has been batting for the cause of Pakistan, and he continues to do so vehemently in the year 1946 as tensions on the issue increase in India and discussion increases in India as well as Britain. By the year 1946, Churchill is sitting in the opposition in Britain. As we know, Churchill was Britain's wartime prime minister and he led Britain in the Second World War. But after the war, he lost the election in 1945 to Clement Attlee, and Attlee became Britain's prime minister. Now, all through 1946, Churchill speaks very strongly in favor of Pakistan. In December that year, he makes an especially strong speech saying that the establishment of the rule of the Hindu numerical majority of India will result in a civil war in that country, and that the creation of Pakistan is a must. Churchill also goes on to say in that same speech on the floor of the British Parliament that the notion of a minority is meaningless, senseless, and has no relevance in the case of India because there are 90 million Muslims here, which is a massive number. Now, around the time Churchill is making this speech in Parliament, Jinnah is visiting London. On the 7th of December, Churchill plays host to Jinnah at his country estate outside London. The two are already on very good terms and they speak regularly, and correspondence between them, written correspondence, is also fairly regular, especially in the year 1946. This meeting between Jinnah and Churchill at Churchill's country estate happens on the 7th of December 1946. On the 11th of December 1946, Churchill makes an impassioned speech in the British Parliament, again in favor of Pakistan and the partition of India. On the 11th of December, the same day on which he makes this speech, Jinnah invites him for lunch the next day, on the 12th, at Claridge's. Jinnah says, let's meet for lunch. I will host you at Claridge's tomorrow, on the 12th of December. Now, here's where things take an interesting turn. Jinnah's position is well known, Churchill's position is well known. Churchill writes a letter in response to Jinnah's invite. Churchill writes to him, "My dear Mr. Jinnah, I am very happy to have received your letter inviting me for luncheon at Claridge's." The next line is very important. "But perhaps it is wiser for us not to be publicly associated at this juncture." I repeat myself, the line from Churchill is, "But it is perhaps wiser for us to be not publicly associated at this juncture and not to be seen publicly at this juncture." It's a very significant statement that Churchill makes. He then goes on to write that from now on, you must not write to me directly. Write to Miss Gilliat in London, and Miss Gilliat will receive the letter. And here I'm mentioning her address to you. Her address is 6 Westminster Gardens. This is necessary so that we do not draw any kind of attention in India. Now, this is a very revealing letter which is part of the British archival records. It still exists. Churchill is saying three things. One is, he's saying don't directly address letters to me. Send them in the name of Miss Gilliat and send them to this address in London. And it's best that if we are not seen to be publicly associated at this point in time. And he's also saying that we must not draw attention in India. All of this indicates that these two gentlemen, these two politicians, these two political personalities, Jinnah and Churchill, were up to something in the year 1946. As tensions were rising, as negotiations were going on the issue of partition. Very interestingly, right through 1946, as I've mentioned earlier, there is plenty of correspondence between Winston Churchill and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. After this letter in December 1946, the trail of correspondence almost goes cold. There are just very harmless press cuttings and speeches which are exchanged officially between them. So did letters go directly from Jinnah to Miss Gilliat? Churchill had said one more important thing in his letter. He said, when I write to you, I will also write in the name of Miss Gilliat. So did Jinnah write to Miss Gilliat in London and Miss Gilliat write to Jinnah back in India after that point in time? Well, my conclusion is they most certainly did. Because otherwise the trail of official correspondence and open correspondence between these two personalities would not have gone so suddenly cold after there having been so much of correspondence just before that particular letter between the two of them. Now, what happened to those letters, if at all they were exchanged between Gilliat and Jinnah? Well, most probably and most likely those letters were destroyed. Now, at this point in time, let me also clarify who Miss Gilliat is. She is not a fictional figure. She is not some imagined personality that Churchill is talking about. She is Winston Churchill's secretary. So what Churchill is saying is, send it to her instead of sending directly to me, and send it to her address and send it in her name so that people won't suspect what's going on between us. Now, why am I saying that these letters were most probably destroyed? Because there is no trace of any such correspondence. And on what basis do I feel they were destroyed? I am saying it because the British Empire had a habit of destroying written records. And I will cite here an example of what I mean. In 1947, and specifically in March 1947, the then British Viceroy, Lord Wavell, demitted office, and in his place Lord Mountbatten or Louis Mountbatten came in as Viceroy in March 1947. Now, just before Lord Wavell left India, Indian political leaders got information that Wavell was putting a lot of British documents into the incinerator at the Viceroy's house. This means he was burning important British documents. Now, when Indian leaders got to know this, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru wrote to Lord Wavell asking him why he was destroying these documents and if it was true that these documents were being destroyed. Wavell responded to him, not denying that the documents were being destroyed. He said that the documents which were being destroyed were of no consequence and they had no value. and the rest of the stuff was being sent to the UK High Commission in India. Now Nehru responds to this in writing again and says that why are documents being destroyed here? Let us form a committee of historians and let them decide whether these documents are precious or not precious, are important or unimportant. This is an important historical record of discussions that are going on, deliberations that are going on between British officials and Indian leaders on the issue of the future of India, the creation of Pakistan, the partition of India, etc., etc. So you cannot destroy these records. Let's put in place a panel of historians, let that panel examine these documents, and then let's decide which documents are fit to be destroyed or not. And Nehru asks him another question. Why are documents being sent to the UK High Commission? What has the UK High Commission got to do with it? And why should these be the preserve of the UK High Commission? Now this is a very critical point here, because this is evidence that the British Empire and its officials were in the habit of destroying records, especially the closer we came to partition, the more they started destroying records, because they would be talking about discussions that they had with Indian leaders. They would be talking about their impressions of Indian political leaders and their ideas and how they were playing the whole game with all of India at that point in time. So most certainly Churchill and Jinnah destroyed those records, and those records stand obliterated. But what we know for certain is that Jinnah and Churchill together were up to no good and were plotting against India in the year 1946. And this Miss Gilead is an important figure to know, because in her name plenty of correspondence was exchanged between the two while they were plotting against India and plotting that the great partition. Let's not get into the merits or demerits of partition at this point in time. But what we know is there is this secret correspondence happening where there is a great plot unraveling against India and the people of India and the political leadership of India in order to take India in a particular direction. And let us not forget also that closer to the partition of India and even after the creation of Pakistan, Churchill remains one of the foremost champions of Pakistan even after its creation, and keeps things going in favor of partition and later in favor of Pakistan after partition from the British point of view. So Winston Churchill is Miss Gilead in disguise, and this is an important chapter of Indian history, a forgotten chapter, a deliberately ignored chapter that we must talk about increasingly. Thank you.